So called to order, we'll do roll call here. All right. Commissioner Mendez Shannon.
Yes, here.
Pandya.
Here.
Prees.
Yes.
Kadora. I believe she is en route. Lusala.
Here.
Kolash here. Paul Schatz. Johns. Absent. Okay. All right. So this is a special meeting of the Human Rights Commission. We don't have our normal time for public comment. We don't have any of the other things. We're simply here to evaluate the applications for our annual racial equity and social justice grants. We have a total of, what is it, $542,000, over $542,000 requested.
Yeah.
We have $100,000 to allocate and recommend to City Council. We'll go through our discussion. You have in front of you, in addition to the agenda, you have a copy of the spreadsheet that you see on the screen with all of the scores from each commissioner from our rubrics. On the screen, we've averaged those together, so you'll see the average of all of our scores put together. Each commissioner should have a printout as well of your own scores, so you have that in front of you. Lots of great projects here, as every year. I think, in my recollection, this year seems like we've got quite a few more than last year. Mm-hmm. So, we'll be going through these, and always our option. We can also, reduce some of the amounts. We can give partial amounts, just as a reminder. And, at the end of the day, we make recommendations to City Council. We can send these recommendations forward with a note that says, we have several other projects we thought were worthwhile, and you never know, we may end up being able to fund a little bit more, but that's not guaranteed. We've got our 100,000 that we can. So I say we start at the top of the list here with the highest average, and we can go from there. And I believe Kelsey has done her magic, and we have we'll keep a running total. So as we go down and we decide, to allocate funds, we can go back and adjust. We can see how much we have left. And then, once we get to 100,000, if there's anything, from one of the lower scoring projects that we want to discuss, we can do that as well. All right, so we want to start with the Eastern Iowa chapter of APAPA. You'll find that if you want to find your notes in your rubric. If you want. Their application in the binder of applications is on page 80. They've requested $3,000.
I just wanted to double check. Is that the first one on your list over here?
That's not the first one I have.
Okay.
It's the first on the screen, sorry. Yeah.
The printed lists you have, we lost the average formula, unfortunately, on those ones, so they're not actually ordered by the top across the board. We had to correct that equation in the spreadsheet.
So
we should look at the screen?
Yeah.
Screen.
Okay.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, that
Thank
makes
you.
much sense now.
All right, yeah, sorry. Thank you for
So
clarifying that.
what I printed here is not correct?
Oh, you do have an, yeah, I think that is not correct.
I think it's just missing.
Oh, that's just Kelsey's score.
No, Paul Shantz is over here. Oh, I see.
Yeah, but I think it got copied over, is what
Okay.
she's saying, so, yeah.
Power broker.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we're on 80, what?
All right, page 80 in the rubric, in the application binder.
And where is it in the rubric?
Kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, sorry, the rubric isn't numbered, so.
Understand.
yeah.
I'm looking.
But this is the average we have right here on the screen.
Yeah.
This column of
Yeah, the screen
everybody's.
is the correct average of all of our scores.
All right, so give me some hints.
Can you guys just, as a reminder, talk into the microphones, please?
I'm sorry, Stephanie, I didn't hear that.
The microphones, just make sure you're speaking into the microphones.
Can you hear me when I'm talking here?
Yes.
Yeah?
It's before houses into homes.
Almost right.
Okay, I'll find out houses into homes. Where is it related to UAY? I'm still looking.
It's page 8, page 8. Oh, you're talking about the rubric?
The rubric, though.
Okay.
Yeah. So as everyone's trying to find that, just kind of a summary reminder here. The project is the Lunar New Year
Yes.
Gala. Yeah.
They got the top score,
It is the top score. Yeah.
and it's $3,000. So.
$3,000. Yes.
Question is, because I was at the Lunar New Year Festival, and I was at the year before, so is this different? Is this
Yes, it is a different organization, actually, because they...
But it's the same applicant.
No. This organization that put on the Lunar New Year, it's completely a different organization that put it on in the past. It used to be the Chinese Area Association. This one
The
is
Asian
the
American Pacific
They
Island.
did not receive fund last year. In the past, we awarded the Chinese Association fund to do
Okay,
in New Year.
thank
So
you.
this is their first year. So
Okay,
to
I
them,
noticed
it
that
will be a
Nali
new
was the
project.
applicant. Yep, okay,
Yeah.
easy.
So, I think that this kind of activity is an important one for our community. One of the nice things about the grants, as we are tasked with and have set out our rubric for ourselves and also shared with our applicants, is being able to see an immediate impact, a start and a finish to the project, as well as that it is serving those in our community who would benefit most from racial equity and social justice activities. I think this applicant scored quite high for me on those kinds of aspects. So the only thing I had on here was just sustainability beyond the funding period of if this is an application that we all agree to support, that I think it would be one that it would be great to talk with them about sustainability for future activities, especially because it is something that maybe is happening yearly and we'd want it to extend beyond what the Human Rights Commission and our grant process can do.
I scored this one very high, and when we're talking about sustainability, they did put on a New Year, Lunar New Year celebration this year without our fund. So that already proves right there that they can do that, and I also like the project because it costs way more than that to put the project together, but they only request the fund for the rental of the Inglet, and they raise the fund for everything else.
Sustainability is, I think that's with the Iowa Community School District, that they got January 27th as Lunar New Year Day, and I think they'll continue to get that.
Yes.
Great.
And I also thought that overall the budget is $10,000, and the way they've listed it here, it sounds like it's very concise and very, I don't know what the word is, but like the money is managed very precisely. You don't see an overstatement or an extra amount at any place. So
Yes.
And they rank high, so
That's
Yeah.
from the festival.
yes.
I'll show you the picture.
Oh, okay. That is a
We
picture.
had dragons. It's the year of the dragon.
They do, and there are ticket sales to this, so it's not reliant completely on us. And yeah, and I think what you said, that was another point that I made when I looked at this, was they're only asking for maybe half of what the budget actually is. So yeah. Right. So I would be inclined to go with the full 3,000 requested here.
Sure.
I will be inclined to support that.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Our next highest score based on average is for the inside out
Great.
reentry community.
I apologize. I'm just going to.
sorry, can you repeat that?
Inside out reentry community, which in the applications,
Let's find it in the rubric.
170.
the rubric is tough because it's not
Number.
numbered. It's 174. And I do believe the rubrics are in the same order, so it should be towards the back of your rubric. It is like the fifth from the end.
Okay. In this day of STEM, I'm really excited when we have something with the arts. And as a counselor myself, I see the value in this. So I was glad that my commissioners seem to agree with me. And the neat thing about the graphic arts is that they're not performative, so that they can, I think it's really resourceful.
I also think this serves a community or a population that we don't often get a chance to fund or support.
I know we funded them in 2017, 2019, and 2020, and they went 2 years without applying. Then they came back in 2023. I'm inclined to support them for that fact that I like that organization that now are coming every year because it becomes kind of like part of the budget. So I like to show that sustainability that you can run the project without just relying on that fund every year. And that it's a small amount that it will have a great impact on that program.
So I'm just going to take a moment to welcome Commissioner Kadora. Viana, so where we are at right now is on the board, we have the highest, they're organized by highest average amongst our scores. And so we've just decided to start at the top of the list and work our way down. And then we acknowledge that there's over $500,000 requested and we have $100,000 to give out. So it's going to be a difficult decision, but that's where we've started at the top of the list. And so now we're focusing on inside-out reentry. But I did want to mention too that the printout that you have in your hand is unfortunately not the right order. But it is on the screen. So we have the correct averages across everyone. Yep.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Inside Out also, I like in terms of how will they measure success. One of the things that I really liked was they would track attendance. That's important. And then again, majority of the funds are going into, not majority, all of them are actually going into art supplies and the real materials rather than anything else.
I also want to say how valuable it is to think outside the box and really look at art in terms of the healing process, but even to network and build that community is so valuable.
The one thing I did note on this, as far when we talk about kind of sustainability or vision of success, I think they cite a lot of research in the application, and I thought that was great, and I'm sure that it's accurate. What I would like to see is a plan, maybe to kind of track the participants of this long term, and see the impact that this has, the recidivism rate among those who participate in this. So I think as part of our kind of revamped partnership with our grant recipients, whichever subcommittee is assigned to this, I'd like to see just a little bit more of that kind of long-term vision of success be incorporated too.
I think too, a lot of the recidivism is factors outside of an art project control, right? And even outside of the individuals necessarily, structures and systems. So I think even knowing, they say that they do want to know with survey data from their attendees what the feedback is on what the workshops mean for them and what they get from them, as well as, I'm inferring a little bit, but it sounds like they'd like to see the impact on mental health and well-being. And so that's really exciting to see, of even for those who might never leave the incarceration system, what that impact might be.
I'm also aware that the new warden here, they no longer have the choir, which was a significant part of their arts life.
Well, I'm inclined to fund this at the full amount requested.
I was just thinking about firstly, I love that also they have 58% people of color in the target population. I was just confused about the staffing, how many staff members would there be, and those quantities are at least not mentioned in there. I don't know what.
I don't have that information.
Inside Out is a small organization. I think there's one staff person. I think they meet upstairs in a church across from the President's Mansion at the end of Clinton.
So I would say, I think what they've done is that because under this grant rubric, an organization can only request up to 25% of the funds cover staffing and overhead. And so it's
Got it.
exactly 25% is what they're requesting for staffing.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
I should say operational costs, not just overhead.
I would agree with the full amount too.
I would support it
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
with full funding.
Is that consensus amongst the group?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay. All right, that brings us to line 4 on the screen there, Open Heartland, which is page 41 in the application binder. Should be about the 7th rubric.
I will just say that I was really impressed with this application, not just how the information was presented, but also the way in which they went about finding a need in our community and how they're organizing the support. So this is for foundational educational skills training, as identified by women's leadership teams with the Open Heartlands programs. And I was very impressed by this because actually Open Heartland has gone into, they describe in this application, they've gone into, they have the leadership team, women's leadership team is made up of 1 to 3 adults from each of the 7 mobile home communities and various apartment complexes in our county. And these female leadership teams have identified the needs within our community for those that they know. And from there, this is where that project has stemmed from. That is a really impressive way of tapping into knowledge held within our community of how we can best reach those who have need, but also what those needs are and ascertaining that. So just from a fundamental place of decision-making and identification, I was really impressed with that process.
I would agree with that. I love the fact that they were able to access the segment of the population that is in need and that their proposal is to support that need in a holistic way. So I would agree with that.
They
This
also
is-
have a lot of past success. We know that, and they've garnered a lot of support.
Yeah, this was the highest project that I had scored for that reason. It targets a very specific group and a group that's very much in need. And that just robust identification of needs and projects that they listed in there is great. And also the network of partnerships in there. You know, they're reaching out to other groups in the community and working together with that. And I think, you know, just that is in terms of impact on the community is significant because of that. Their vision for success is great. They, have received funds in 2021 and 22, but not last year.
Correct.
Yeah.
I like the project. I just like the way they lay out the project, and I'm willing to support it. And the fact that we did not support them last year, and they still were able to have so much success on their own, I'm inclined to support it.
The only thing that I saw in here is just, how, when it goes to measuring success, it just got a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
And with using so much surveys, it's an awesome project, but then, if the feedbacks and the surveys is the only way, way to measure the success of the project, then it's not the concrete evidence that will gonna be, implemented in the following years.
I had that comment too, Viana. I was wondering how they're going to measure it, but I was overwhelmed by what they put together.
Yes, I agree.
I always, I do make this comment every year because it's important. Sometimes we look at certain grant, it's well written, very well written, because, there are organizations that have grant writer. These people are trained, they write grants, they know how to lay out information, they know how to do research and bring it into the grant. So I try to go above just how it's laid out, because there's also new organization with new projects that might not have grant writer on their staff, and they just, scrambling to put a good project together, but it might not be laid out the way we would like it. So I always look into how much impact this project will have on the community, and I think this one is one that it's important, and it's going to have a great impact, and we already seen some of the work that they are doing in the community, and it's impressive. So
I would recommend full funding for this.
I'll second that.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Also in agreement. The one thing that I think just on the back end that I think I would just want clarification on is just ensuring that their class facilitators aren't on payroll. I think if so, we've got a little bit more, or depending on how that budget is broken up for us, that could exceed 25%. But I think that's just a follow-up after, just with more information.
Yeah.
I support a full allocation of the amount that they've requested.
I was just on the second hand thinking that there are lots of other organizations. So if there would be a possibility to, I don't know. I mean, they do mention that they might be able to work with a little less funding. So to consider as we go towards the end, I love the work that Open Heartland does personally. And it reaches out to a lot of people, but then just thinking in my head that if there might be another small funding that we could support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to highlight that somehow? We can, and as one we could potentially revisit.
Absolutely. Let's do.
All right. Great. Okay, so Better Together Community Development Corporation, an average of 30.43 amongst us. Page 161 in the application notebook, 161. It puts it towards the end of your rubrics. Looks like 8 or 9 from the end, maybe. Project is a welcome week designed to bring together neighbors of all backgrounds to build strong connections, affirm the importance of welcoming and inclusive places. I like the idea. In my scoring, I thought there aren't a lot of specifics in here about where or when the festival would be, who else is involved. They do list a few other representatives of, some other organizations, but not listed out exactly what those do. And as far as looking at the success, what their clear vision of success is, that to me was a little vague. In the direct question, it just said surveys of attendees and feedback will be collected. What are the kind of more tangible outcomes to the immigrant community that this is going to provide? I think it sounds like a great idea, but given all of the other projects.
I struggle a little bit with this project when it comes to the true nature of social justice and racial equity. how much it's gonna reach behind that. So
Thank you for saying what I was trying to get to in my ramble there. That was perfect, Roger. Thank
yeah,
you.
that's my gift, and it gets me in trouble all the time because I say it like it is. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
The Welcome Week, yes, it's a great concept. How much of that impacting the social justice and racial equity piece, I struggle with that.
I was pleased to see their partners. That was, I think, what I've heard about this group, that they're continuing to bring other people together. So it's a community-wide thing, that they live out their theme, better together. My notes is that the previous year brought both commitment to do it again and learning how to do it better. So they're growing from that previous experience.
So I think I would build on that point, Mark, and just say that, I think what we hear from migrant communities in our county and our community in our city, and also those who might be facing injustices, is that one of their challenges is knowing and having access to all the available resources and all of the programs that are available to them. I read in this is that Welcoming Week is one way that they would be collecting and sharing information of different types of spaces specifically for migrant populations in our city, and convening them and bringing them together so that people have access to that information as well as those contacts. That was one of the reasons why I felt that the group was, it's a specific community within our city that would benefit from this project. It also leads to community building, which does have a significant impact. And, I think their vision of success maybe, but that's, in a case like this, I think if you want more than survey data, I would be curious what else from something like this, but those are my reactions to the project.
Isn't it this festival that happened last year, and the Human Rights Commissioners, they had a table in it too? The Welcome Festival, is it the same one
I don't think so.
at Mercer Park?
Stephanie, did we have a
don't
table at the
remember.
Welcome Festival?
It was at Mercer Park?
I don't think so.
No, it was something similar?
I don't think so.
You're saying yes, so,
I think we probably did.
I recall there is something about,
okay. That was-
so if we're talking about the same one, like personally, I went there, and I attended that one. You see lots of minorities, representing themselves, through food, through culture, through clothing, through, history. And it's really, it humbled me to see all those people coming from different backgrounds, and from different churches, different congregations, and just, being on a human level, like interacting that day.
And hearing you tell me this speaks loud to me. Here I am, the big old white male. I need to listen to others. Thank you.
I also had a high on this one because the amount of firstly, the collaborative spirit. And in fact, like to your point of measuring success, I thought it was a strength of this project because they say attendees and engagement are the primary drivers of success in these types of collaborative events and qualitative opportunities. So I appreciate that they want to know how many people attend and also how well they're collaborating, and that can be reflected in the number of organizations that are reflected in terms of people that they collaborate with. Also, the mission statement, and like you said, it's an opportunity for people to represent their cultures through their food, themselves. I love that they have translation listed for events. So many events just miss that completely. And there are a number of things that really impressed me about that application, which truly showed like a very collaborative spirit of the organization. The only thing that I was thinking about was the program admin, which is $2,400, and like you said, 25% should be on staffing. I think $2,400 out of $8,600 would be more than 25%.
I think proportional, though, to the amount that we've been asked, that would be okay, but I'll do the
calculations. Okay. So that, yeah, the $2,400 was put on that, so that was something. But I genuinely liked the collaborative spirit, and it's a welcome week.
Yeah.
Few opportunities for different cultures to meet together in one spot. There are lots of individual cultural events where there are people of the same culture sort of getting together, but here it's like an opportunity to also have that cross-cultural collaboration.
This was one that I did highlight as possible, looking at their budget, possibly funding the translation and AV services, which they called out as a challenge last year, and funding that piece.
I want to say that I participated in an event that it's a similar one, and the presence just of the diversity is pretty powerful. I would also love, I see that there's activities for the poverty alleviation activities. I would love also to see some activities around how do we create our common ground, with all the diversity involved. That would have been a step, more into that piece of the coalition drawing and that drive.
I'm ready to go forward with this one. So move.
Mark, are you saying full funding from what they've requested?
I am.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I'll get better at it as the night goes on. I recommend Better Together Community Development Corporation gets $8,650. How about that?
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Other thoughts?
I would agree with that, but then again, like my thought process is in case if there needs to be a little adjustment with the funding to include more organizations, but at least I've highlighted some things that I think are really amazing, like stipends for cultural performances, permit fees for immigrant refugee vendors and food trucks, and things like that, which I would definitely think are worthy of getting funded. But I would second the full funding too.
Thank you.
I kind of was doing that to kind of highlighting some of those important things that I think, the translation, that's 1,000. You look at the performance stipend, that's 1,000. You look at the staff time, So we are, for what I have, we're already getting close to 5,000. So I would support the project. I would like it highlighted, like the other project, and the possibility of coming back if we need to. But I definitely will support the project, and I'll support partial funding as well, so if we need to come back.
Agreed. I would support partial funding so we can put the full amount there and highlight it.
Okay, so I would just say that I would also, I think in this case too, because there's already some cost sharing and it's not a very expensive event, that I would support full funding, but I'm highlighting this in consensus with the group that we can come back to that if we decide we want to prioritize some other things too.
I don't see it on my screen, but are you getting a total at the bottom?
So I am, yes.
Yeah.
Look at you go. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we have about.
So far we're
7,000
at 27,600-ish. Yeah, so about a quarter of the way there. All right, so we move on to houses into homes.
I'll speak to this because I was concerned initially that they've received grants from us 2 years previous. But what attracted me to this one was it's new, and they also, in their application, showed us how we could reduce it by 1/3 or 2/3. In that they said it's about $5,000 for 40 kits, and they've asked for 120 kits, so 15,000. And it just makes it a little easier to manage it and distribute the money a little more.
I just want to state that, I love Houses to Home, and I love what they are doing, especially with a lot of the immigrant population coming in and the work that they're doing. And yes, I saw one of the downfalls that they received funding 2 years in a row. So I'm willing to support the partial funding. Like you say, we can reduce some of that stuff. I'd like to see them talk about how they're going to sustain their mission without coming for funding every year. I think it's important so we can recognize new projects and look into also some new projects. So, but I love the organization and the work that they are doing. They keep growing and they keep serving more and more family in our community. So it's hard when we don't have that much money, but you want to consider a new project there as well. So I would support partial funding, but not full funding, because I think
What's distinctive about this one is it's a specific project.
Yes.
Which sets it apart. I really like that it's accessible. I do know that they've hired staff, and that's not involved any of the funding we provided.
Yeah, I know last year they had the volunteer academy, and it was a great way to get young people involved, in helping out recruit volunteers, especially on their pickup and delivery week. And it's just an amazing group of people that are doing amazing things, and they got great support in the community as well. So,
You were going to say, Ivana?
Yes, I got a chance to volunteer one time with the Miriam Girls Club over there, and we discussed, like we talked about, how they are in great need for kitchen, utensils and supplies and everything. And I was mesmerized by, how dignifying it is to house people and to provide them with essentials like new mattresses and
Yes.
used ones, especially when it comes to the kitchen. That's the hub in the house,
Yeah.
it brings all families together. So using, and the most important thing is pots and pans and things, So having this set for the families, it's a joyful thing that they start a new living, a dignified, living, and with integrity, that this is, brand new and I can use it and keep it, So I'm into, funding this project, but in regards to the amount, it depends if we are short in funding other ones. So if it's not possible for a full fund, then a partial one, but I'm with it.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
yeah, I love the idea.
I agree with the partial funding too, and the diversity here, obviously 58% are extremely low income, and 85% of their populations are Black and Hispanic together. So I really like that, but I agree with the partial funding.
What about that they've asked for 120 kits, that we could give them 80 kits, that's 10,000 instead of the 15,000? Or you want 40 kits, it's 5,000?
I was going to propose 40 kits at 5,000. 2 years ago, we gave them 15,000. Last year, they got 10,000 from us. I think as
You want to go
I
gradual
think,
cutting
I think
them
to
off?
Roger's point, I think that makes sense in, not as a punitive thing. I think just in order to spread things around, because
Okay.
they've gotten $25,000 in 2 years from this grant. So
But let me share just one thing. As I learned from them, that even with the funding they get, and even with the budget they have, they have a huge waiting list.
Yeah.
That whether it's due to staffing or due to even lack of the items that's requested. So they're still building themselves up, and I think this is a great individual project that will assist them in doing a better job of fulfilling the needs of people.
And I understand, just so I'm not misunderstood, I'm not.
Yeah, no,
it's-
yes, yeah,
There's
yeah.
probably, all of these projects probably have a waiting list of
all
people that,
worthy
and so
projects.
that's my point. is
Well,
all.
I wouldn't
Like,
say they all were the
Well, maybe
project.
not
I
all,
think
but
there was one
there's quite a
project that
few
it wasn't
that. Well, yes, yeah, but yeah.
So a little bit of devil's advocate just for a second. I think when there's a project that is adequately and successfully reaching those that we want to reach with this grant application process, and doing so in a thoughtful and deliberate manner, which they directly benefit from, like a lot of programs, it's more of an indirect impact. This is a direct impact. And I think you can see that it will benefit people. They'll be able to cook at home.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I would, obviously we've got a number of grants here, or a number of applications here. There's many great ones. But I noticed that even at 120 households, that's only about 35% of the households that they serve. So even at the full amount that's requested. So I would encourage us to grant things that are good ideas and good projects in full, because that enables these organizations to do more good work. So I would go for more of like maybe the 80 mark, if not the full like 120 they've requested
I
personally.
just was excited
Yeah.
that I could do the math.
I'm willing to go half of on the funding that they requested.
I would agree. I think
I love the organization
Same.
and the work they do. at the same time, there's also a lot of projects, and especially some of those new projects that we need to look into as well. We have funded them 3 years in a row, and I think, I'll support going partial funding and funding them half of what they have requested.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, what I want to say is that it feels as a social worker, this definitely is a gap in services, and the way that they were able to think about that and have just a program specifically, to that is so amazing.
I think also, working in a nonprofit for a long time, when you get half funding from a grant organization, you can use that as a leverage to go to your donor and say, hey, I got, we asked for $15,000, that was our need. We got half of it. Can our donor help us get to that level? So, but if you go into them bare hand, they're not looking at you like, what did you bring into the table? But already having something and saying, can you help us get to what we needed? I think it's much more feasible.
So we're at 7,560 kits. I'm just showing off the
That's-
math, man.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's the
good job, Mark.
Is that like a
Yes.
consensus or?
I've heard consensus from a few people, but I just want to make sure that we've
Yes.
got it.
75?
I'm good with
7,500.
75.
Yes, I'm fine with it too.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Okay. United Action for Youth. This is on page 109. So it'll be a couple rubrics back after houses into homes.
This is another one of those that provided us an option where if they didn't get full funding, they could make do. I'm not finding it yet, but I will.
Sorry, did you say full funding? Mark, did you say you support full funding?
Oh, no, I was saying that I can't find it here in my little rubric, but what they provided us is if they didn't hire the staff person, they could do significant work for $5,500 less than what they requested. And I thought that, just that helps us. On the other hand, the project that the way they've labeled it, it sounds like feet on the street.
Yeah, I liked the feet on the street, the way you put it there. I like that aspect of this. I think this is also one of the highest that I scored. I think their measure of success is probably one of the best of the applications. Their evaluation framework for this is very, very good. And I think it addresses another segment of the population. And I think that's always something good to look at as well. So,
I love United Action for Youth, the work they do. They especially target populations that are not otherwise served in community, and they do it really well. The only reason why I had not marked it as much as the others was it does get significant funding from other sources. It has a budget of $2.3 million a year compared to a lot of the other small organizations which have $100,000, $75,000 yearly budget, which means they also have fewer sources of funding. So that was the only reason why but the project, in itself, I would have scored a full, except that it has more funding from other places.
I agree with you, and UAY is not a new organization. They've been around for a long time, and they do get a lot of funding from AIDS to Agency and CDBG and a lot of that stuff. One of the questions that I was asking myself, I say with a $2.3 million budget, if you don't get full funding, would you still run the program? Probably they will.
So,
So,
sorry, Roger, go ahead.
yeah. So that's kind of where I was thinking. I'm like, it's a great project. With limited funding, would I fund the project fully? Probably not. I would probably partially fund it because I know they can probably come up with the rest to make sure that this goes forward, because the budget is present and they have other source of funding as well. And because they've been around for a long time, I think they also got a great group of supporters. So, but I like the project. I still think, like again, speaking my mind, I still think UAY need to serve more youth of colors. I still struggle with that. But they serve great population, and there's a lot of youth that I know of, binary and LGBTQ, that they get great services for me, UAY.
Even undocumented
Yes.
minors, unaccompanied too.
So I agree with a lot of those sentiments, Roger. I would also just say that, this is an initial set of funds that is partly coming from the federal government.
Yeah.
So this project is a pilot, as far as I understand it, and it will happen. But what UAY is proposing is that they want to transform it into a way that would also meet a lot of their approaches, including adding on the peer mentor program.
Yeah.
And so I do think that it would happen hopefully without us. But it is important when these things can be further supported by the community, including in many of the ways that I think it meets our rubric. I would say, because they have said that they would want to, if they receive reduced funding, that they would want to purchase the basic needs packs first. That is budgeted for 160 units at $8,000, so $50 per unit. That, I think, might be an interesting, if we are still continuing to try to want to incorporate as many wonderful applications as possible, that could be an interesting amount for us to consider for this grant application.
Even the basic needs packs and the peer mentor salary is $13,500. So that'd be
Would that be operational, though, the peer mentor salary? That would be a bit more than 25. I'm not clear.
and then that might be more than. That's a good
Not
point,
clear at
though.
all. But we could add 25% onto. You could $10,000, and you could say that 2,000 of that was for the peer mentor. As a suggestion.
Yeah, 5,500 is what they're asking for the peer mentor, but,
Which is more than 20% of the.
25%, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so if you went without completely removing it, you're saying if you just took the 8 plus 2,000, you'd have 10, you'd cut their request in half, and you would partially fund the peer mentor?
So, and just to clarify, so if we were funding basic needs packs and the peer mentor, if a peer mentor is part of their operational costs, 25%, it would be, sorry, I'm not explaining math correctly, but the total of 10%, if we did $10,000 and 2,000 of that was going towards the peer mentor, that is only at 25% of the entire overarching budget.
Yeah.
Although, just to put in their application under, can this be completed with less funding, they did say in order to hire a peer mentor, full funding for that portion would be needed. So it sounds like
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
either the 5,500 or none. So
Well, we can cover the basic supplies, the
Yep.
program supplies, and the food for the outreach. That still gives us half,
Take it to 9.5 then, yeah?
round it up to 10,
10.5.
or 10.
Yeah, I love that.
And the program supplies would be 10,500.
I think that would be a direct impact for services as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
because it is for youth experiencing homelessness. I really love the project in
Yep.
itself.
I've heard,
And homeless youth that have been ejected from their homes because of who they are. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love the project. I
Yeah.
mean,
I've heard majority consensus so far, but I just wanted to check at that end.
yes.
Yana, 10.5?
It's an awesome project, especially when it comes to youth, homelessness. We need even more work to be done toward, this group. But the only thing that when I was reading through it is, like the project by itself, if we take it, then isolation to the whole, organization, I'd not see it like it's standing, at an advancement for the racial, or social justice, by itself as a project.
That's a good point.
That's the only thing. Yes, the mission is great. The work needs we have to, dedicate more people even to do more work toward the homelessness of our youth, in different, various genders and identities. But that's the only thing. Like, did it fall underneath, like, the human rights, commissioner,
So,
I think we
It
can
does.
make an argument on the social justice piece
would agree.
right there.
No, and
Yeah.
the target population is 62% Black, 12% Latinx, 3% biracial, and 3% American Indian. So it's only 15% white.
That's the targeted population.
target.
Targeted.
but serviced is,
Yes.
yeah, different.
Yeah.
So because it's a new project, it does not have a history to build on it. That's the only thing. But homelessness in general, it's a major
Significant.
issue that we need to work on it.
I think the packets to represent the bridge to communication and connect as well. So that's the part where I think for me was helpful to understand the justice piece as well.
Yeah.
So making that partnership in a way that can support that community.
Yeah, I think you can make a argument on that social justice piece right there, and it's a great project. It's a great population. It's a much needed population. I'm just saying, maybe partial funding. I
So-
think we had a consensus on 10,
I
and
think
we were looking at you if
10,500
you.
works.
We got 10.5 currently.
Okay.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So as a status update, our totals so far are just over $45,000. And that's just as we've allocated, noting that there are a couple that we could consider again in order to open up more funds if we felt that projects were worthwhile to do so.
You know, something I noticed this year, and I don't think we have had this previous year. I know people can apply up to 25,000, but I think we have had more 25,000 this year than any year in the past. So, it's, yeah,
Yeah.
we can apply for 25, we'll just go for 25, so.
True.
But I haven't, I've been in a commission 3 years. I have not seen that many full funding requests.
I agree.
Yeah. The other thing, though, I noticed is if you look at like the top 6 or 7 that, according to our scores of averages, none of those requested the full 25,000.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe
Which
this-
I think kind of speaks to, our evaluation of these is, these are organizations that do good work with and manage their money well, right? Because they know exactly what they need, and they're not just
Yes.
asking for the 25,000 because
Correct.
they can.
Correct.
Yeah.
There could
Well,
be another
but-
dynamic happening, though, which is that our community has benefited from ARPA funds and ARPA money, and a lot of that will be used now. And so there's a lot of great projects that I think are looking for sustainable funding now that a lot of those funds have been spent. So I think that can be a factor. I think for this grant application process, it is useful when we can see an itemized budget of a specific project. That is so useful because then we know there's a start and finish to it, or there's an ongoing opportunity for it to continue beyond our granting cycle, simply because this is a small amount of funds that we're working with and can pull from in grant making in our community. So that's the balance, I think, and it's very difficult, but there is, I think, a message that we could communicate back to our community leaders saying, and from the private sector and our city leaders saying, look, there's great programs in town and they need to be further funded.
I think we can also use this opportunity to put in a plug to the city council that, with $500,000 in requests and we only have 100,000, maybe it's time the city council boosts the social justice, racial equity grant so we can be able to fund more of these worthy projects.
I think we started out with 75,000, so but we
I
tried
know.
this last year.
I know we asked the increase 2 years ago, we got it,
Keep after
so
it.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe it's
they just,
time we get a
The worst they
raise.
could say is no.
Yes.
I think that, along with
That
our
is my thoughts,
recommendations, we
exactly.
include a,
And actually, that would be something that it would be possible for us to request along with our recommendations. So we can do
Yes.
that alongside these recommendations to City Council.
Could we request more than what's been allotted to us with the invitation for the city council to give us more money?
I think since their budget is
Oh, we
set,
can't go
they
backward.
probably-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Their budget's set for 3 years, so. you
Right.
have to-
The city budgets with
Well,
no
they
fat in
have-
their budget, yeah, right.
But the city always have the general fund they can pull.
Exactly. Yep.
And discretionary fund as well. But
Exactly.
we have to work within our
Yeah.
right.
allowed budget. We can always request for the future.
I think we make our request and they decide if they want to deny or approve it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Domestic Violence Intervention Program, page 131.
131.
It's a
Thank you,
couple
Mr.
more,
Chair.
and it's a couple rubrics past where we were.
I'm a big advocate for DVIP,
They did
particularly.
receive one of our awards last spring.
I pray God they're going to get another one because
No, not a grant, but our actual
Oh.
human
Yeah,
rights
they-
award.
they got the
breakfast.
Human Right
Yeah.
Award.
Thank you, yeah.
what our government has done, state government has, we used to have 31 DVIP sites. We now have 5 in the state of Iowa. This particular project burns deep in my heart in terms of black maternity. So I recommend full funding.
I saw firstly, so much high need. I love how they also speak why it's important in this point, especially post-COVID with an increased mortality due to domestic abuse. Also looking at the whole itemized budget, all of that money is actually for direct impact. There is no money for administrative costs or anything at all. So I also am a very big advocate to have full funding for this organization.
They have some significant collaborators they've had for a long time.
You know the thing I love about DVIP, they do such a great work, and yes, you don't always see everybody that are impacted with DVIP because most of those people sometimes have to be in hiding. So you don't always see a bad woman out there or an abused woman saying, hey, I get services from DVIP because of the, being afraid from the abuser. I deal with that all the time in my other line of work. So I always appreciate when they come up with amazing projects like this and to support them. So
Yeah, and then the mini conference would be an opportunity again for cross-cultural, also collaboration, getting to know. And then they're bringing in professional, like an in-depth discussion and all of that. And yet, all of the money that they've asked for is not related to paying the professionals or people who already have that money. It's all for the people in need.
Well, my understanding is that the maternal health tote bags they are also called swag bags at a different part of the application. And so my understanding is that they would be given out at the event, right?
Yes.
And so they would be going to professionals who would then, it does say on page 133 that then the participants would share them with the clients that they're working with. So
Yeah.
it is like which they do, right? So it's that does happen, definitely.
I appreciate how the highlight of this concept and topic and experience is done at a conference where people can feel they can participate and be seen in this process. It's such a powerful moment to consider when you bring together a network of support. It has a direct impact in the community.
My only things when I was reading this is just the kits, the sum of money that, devoted to purchase those kits. How many of those people, there's no tracker if those kits will be used or not. Like, it's a one-day conference, and then there's a feedback, but, like, from personal experience, like I used, to be involved in volunteering different places and things, and people are always willing to take, a free kits with them. But, no one follows up if they are using those ones or not. Like, I don't know.
I get what you're saying. You know, we all like to go to conferences to get stuff. That's why people go to conferences. But I always thinking about, even if half of the people took those kits and used them,
Better than.
and then the way it's supposed to be used, just what it can prevent, you know, or giving people the information that they need. Like, I'm gonna come back again saying, you know, domestic violence people are now on the streets saying, you know, I receive those services. So it's a sensitive topic, and at the same time that even if it can go halfway, what it can prevent, and it doesn't not only affect the person, but because I work in the child welfare system and family welfare, that affects the whole family and all the kids. And that's where we come in to deal with the secondary trauma and all that stuff that happened just because there was a domestic abuser in the home. So
Yeah, but the kit's supposed to last for how long? Is it just like a one-use kit?
I think the kits can be used for clients, right? I don't know if they'll actually will hand them out or just share the information. So
I appreciate it's silly for me to appreciate what's in there, but these are items that have been at my house for my wife to use. Some of them are expendable. But I'm going to guess that those who attend the conference receive more than one bag, yeah?
I don't think so.
Right. That, I mean, I like Viana's point too about, you know, how useful will that be? And then that makes me go back to the Birthing Justice film, and the cost is $999, and I wasn't sure what that was too.
yeah.
And for some people, I'm going to suppose that these things aren't known. You know, that the suffering, tucks were a big deal at my house,
So
my daughter's house.
I think one of the things I've been reflecting on is, you know, they do say in their application that the one thing that they say cost reduction, but the one thing that cannot be cut and compromised are the maternal health tote bags. So this is one area where they do, they have said, if you're going to fund us,
Yeah.
fund that. And I would say that if that's the case, I'm in for full funding on this one, and the reason for that is that it's a opportunity for there to be a connection made with those in our community who are working with and making a connection with very vulnerable women in many cases, but maybe they have a different gender identity, who are facing domestic violence alongside, and like making the connection between domestic violence and maternal health. This is an area that we need to do better on, and drawing those connections and that information. And so I think that this would be an impactful program in our community for those who are able to attend it, but then also pass on that information. And there have been some suggestions in this application of how those participants who attend would be able to further on that insight in their work, but also across the community.
I second Kelsey's. She put it so eloquently than
Again.
I would have.
She always does. Right? She's fantastic. Yes, I agree.
Goes to international conferences.
What do you think about the $1,000 for the film then? Could that be something that we can cut costs? I mean, my whole purpose of that is so that we can have a little more funding to another organization if we can manage some of that.
So you're talking about providing the totes by just eliminating the birthing justice film?
Yeah. That would be $1,000. So, but because Viana's point was really valid, that we don't know how many people might end up attending it. What if it has a comparatively lower attendance, or even if it does have high attendance, if that's
Remind me,
something
are
we
they
can.
buying or are they just paying to have it shown?
It's the license.
It's the license. It's a birthing justice documentary.
And there's a discussion toolkit that comes with it as well that's going to fuel the discussion.
They do have a backup of
Yeah.
a film called The Aftershock as
True.
well.
Which I was just looking up. It's, death of 2 women following childbirth complications and their bereaved families. So it's on topic. It's at their choice and at their discretion. I don't have a strong feeling about that. I think like if they've selected the video, or even if they have, maybe additional budget that can go to the documentary that they want to show, I think the plan as a whole, as it stands, is really good and would support that. Would support it with or without that documentary.
I'm willing to support the full funding on this one, really. Think we can find that $1,000 somewhere else.
I agree with that, but I also am open to,
Yeah,
we can blue it if you want.
Yeah, why don't we do what we did with the other ones and
Yeah.
decide to go back?
99.
yeah.
Because we're trying to make something for everyone, right?
Right.
Well, what we can.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
much as we can. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Indigenous Art Alliance, page 200. It's the last application, the last rubric as well. And just putting out there, Stephanie, I believe this is the one that was submitted a day late, right? Okay, so, not that that disqualifies it, but just to put it out there for consideration.
Shouldn't it disqualify?
If we decide that should disqualify it, then it disqualifies it, but just letting everyone know. But I'll be the first to say I don't want it disqualified. I think it, to Mark's point earlier, the arts are something that are impactful and often overlooked and underfunded. And this particularly with the indigenous community, I know Great Plains Action Society has received great funds in the past. They did not apply this year. I think supporting that indigenous community is important. And I like how this project does that.
Okay, help me understand the project, because as I read it, the grant is to fully fit a space with live stream technology to advance the mission of an underrepresented people. So that I know where this facility is. It sounds like it needs a lot of technology, and that's expensive. My concern then is, because of its location, are you going to get people there? I mean,
Where is
Well,
it's on
Did you-
Gilbert.
on Gilbert? Okay.
I think, so my understanding is that, so they have a physical location that's already been hosting some of these activities. They want to expand that program, as I understand it here. It is a continuous project, which that was maybe one of my questions I had, is we do typically like to fund new projects. But I do think that this is still in its new phase because it's happening, it's being launched in the midst of still COVID and getting people back out. So it is a good question, Mark. But I actually think that specifically because maybe not many people can, or not as many people can access those events at that specific location, that's exactly why they need the digital capacities, is to have live streams of it so that they can reach more people and they can be a part of it and have more community with
And
it.
that means you're teaching an old guy about what this live stream thing means.
But you know what live streaming is. That's okay, right? So they.
Right on Sunday, when I was in the parking lot outside Carver to watch my worship service, it didn't work.
Yeah, it's tricky, but
One thing that really attracted me to this project was the target population. It's very underserved. But then I was also thinking of, cutting costs. And one of the things that I was thinking of was maybe the guest artist stipend, which was like $9,300.
I have that as well.
Yeah, so.
It's a continuation project, but it is new to us, right?
Right.
Because we haven't funded them.
We have not funded this
Correct.
before.
Yeah.
No.
Correct.
I wonder with the funding, it won't be so new to us. Good idea.
I was just concerned with all the digital age that we live in right now. How many people are interested just being in a physical location nowadays with this busy life and things? So how impactful will this project be for a long term? Like if you invest in it, will it just only, be like an experimental pilot program,
That's the kind of question that I think is good to ask, but there's likely not a lot of ways to know the answer to that. And I think that's where, if we have a commitment to want to be a part of new projects, we have to be willing to take risks. And that's one of them, right, is we don't know the sustainability long term. We do try to evaluate it based on what they share with us as much as possible. But it's a challenge to hold in balance. I had maybe one, when we think about the timeline of the grant distribution process, there were some things that it seemed like might be occurring before they would receive the grants, but if they were funded, but I do think that it's a circular and cycle. There's a cycle to their year, and so they'd be able to use it whenever they're able to, like throughout the year. But just for example, I don't think that the April activities would be maybe
No.
able to receive this. Maybe just barely the July ones if they're able to buy the supplies by that time, but that's maybe one factor in just the distribution timeline of the funds. And then I will also note that I think I saw that the project they said it cannot be completed with less funding.
Yeah.
Now, I agree that it would be interesting to see if there's maybe a way that we can still continue to share our funds across more applications, but that is something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, for Viana's point, I like that they mention that what demographics they're trying to serve. They say that they're trying to have grade school students have field trips, college students go and visit that. And I think those opportunities are really lacking and missing into our own education and being in the US, learning more about indigenous art and history and culture. So, which is why I support, but I agree with your point. If there's a way to know if we can sort of reduce the amount and still fund this project partially.
I like the project. I don't like that they can do it with less funding, because that's one of the things they cannot, can this project be completed with less funding? No. So our budget is not big. To pull 25,000 out of that just for one project, it's a new project. I'm struggling with that.
I can.
Yeah, but one thing I thought there is, can this project be completed with less funding? They said no, and then the rest of that answer is all about, we need the technology, we need the technology.
Yeah.
So that leads me to think, well, maybe they can do it with just funding the technology piece instead of the stipend.
Yeah.
So that might be a way to partially fund.
I feel very conflicted about that because I do want to, it's nice to be able to separate things out, but I do think it is really important to pay artists and speakers, especially from our minority communities, for their time. That's often something that's very difficult for smaller organizations to be able to justify to funding or institutions, and so.
Well, and I agree. I just
yeah.
was pointing out the way they answered that question.
Oh, no, I totally,
Yeah.
yes, fair point. And I feel conflicted, yes.
Yeah, I'm conflicted, so.
Is there a possibility to reduce, for example, like the portable gallery wall, they want 4, which is $3,400. Could that be reduced a little bit? And then the guest artists for 4 yearly events, maybe if we shorten that, they might have 2 yearly events instead.
Well, I think we can reduce whatever we feel we can reduce, but their answer is that they cannot complete the project without full funding. So
What do you
we
get
can
for
reduce it all we
$2,300?
want. If they cannot complete it, then either we're gonna have to come back because they cannot complete it, we have to bring money back to do another round when we have worthy project now, or
Yeah.
that's for me, I can support full funding.
Have people ever returned some money? They said, oh, no, we cannot take it because it's not the limit we asked for?
Yes, we have had an
really?
organization say,
Okay.
you give us this money, we can hold the event. So they wanted to bring the money back. We actually said, no, keep it, use it on the next event.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, we have had organization that came back.
Okay, good to know.
Because you have to be accountable for the funding, so.
Yeah.
I think, so in this case, we started our discussion with, I think, a point that still is salient, which is that across the board with all of the projects and grant applications we've received, this is the only one that directly services Indigenous community members and also those
Yeah.
across the state who may not even be able to access the programs within Iowa City. I think it would be a unique project to fund as much as we possibly can. And that determination might depend. If there's a way that maybe we say, we want to get you started. So we're going to, do as much of the equipment as we can, and then maybe guest stipends for 1 or 2, get you on your way, and then encourage others to be a part of it as well. That could also be another option, but I'm not sure if they would turn
I
away
did the
that.
math in my
I would
head, that
support
if you
that.
do the hard stuff, it's 15,620. So when they subtract that from 25,000, you get the 9320. So you have 4 events and you need to spend that, so you end up with 2330. I'm with you with 2 events or budgeting. So that would be something like 4660?
In addition to the,
No, 4660 instead of 9320.
but on top of the digital materials,
Yeah.
the technology, yeah.
I just looked at the last item in their budget.
If there's another place to cut costs, I would think of the portable gallery wall display.
I would also like to see their plan for increased support. The goal is they're trying to collaborate with the local schools and the universities. So I'm hoping that somehow there'll be a collaboration there to support more funding for next year.
Well, I was looking at that. I was thinking that if they already, had their mindset and they're already collaborating with the school district and they're going to be offering those tours and, new ideas, new things, that would have supported more, the request.
But they haven't got there yet.
Yeah, they haven't
Right.
got there yet.
Right.
Getting to the school district is not a piece of cake.
I know.
All right.
Just one outside consideration was, like Kelsey said, that if you also want to support just the artists and not the technology and see if they want to do the project, inviting as many schools as they can for this sort of an event, because they already have the space without the technology was one of the things. So, if that fits into our budget.
This project rated high. I'm willing to support half funding, and they can use it and try to come up with the rest. If not, like they said, no. But if they now willing to do that, then we have to put a hard line that you bring the funding back so it can be allocated to somebody else.
I think I'm headed in a similar direction, Roger, but maybe with a little bit different logic in that I think I would try to get us up to at least that 15,680 for those materials that they've requested. And actually to say that if we have a request to our city council to increase our funding, that this would be one that we would have wanted to fund at full if we had additional funds. So I think for me, that's kind of the logic I would get to, just so that then at least there's a component that they could pay for in full or primarily, mostly, and then be able to choose and be able to move forward with the project.
To equip the space. That's really significant. I think that has to happen.
They provide us a budget, and we don't necessarily have say over how they allocate it. So we can say we allocated this because it was the sum total of the technology, but if it was determined that the stipends are more important, I think that would just be up to them.
Did I miss it in their app? Who else do they collaborate with?
It is PS1, Art Force Iowa.
PS1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did it say?
Partnership Public Space One and other Iowa City organizations. And Art Force Iowa in Des Moines.
I would,
In Des Moines?
And yeah, in addition to the Iowa City organizations, also has recently partnered with Art Force Iowa.
would you suppose Great Plain Action Society is a collaborator with us?
They're not listed, so.
They're not listed,
Yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, I wouldn't want to.
All right. Well, it's the one app that's related to indigenous peoples.
That's what I keep coming
It's
back to.
And
The
this
only-
organization is based here, right? In
It
Iowa
is.
City.
Yep.
yeah.
It's so much in need. It's the only organization that targets this population and also connects with other people in the community to go and learn more about their culture. So I'm
Well,
Yep.
is it the only organization that targets indigenous people?
From-
or is it
on our applications.
That's
on our applications.
Okay, but not in Iowa City.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm still willing to fund it, not fully. There's so many organizations that are doing amazing things, and I think funding it some way is important, but I don't think, is it a 25,000 only because our max was 25? If our max was 50, would the application come in for 50? We don't know.
Probably, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like I
But-
think when you're talking about capacity building for new organizations, I think that's just always a factor.
Yeah, that's what I'm supporting, a partial funding.
Okay, Roger, I heard you say earlier a proposal for half funding. I said, could we actually just, that would be 12,500. I said, let's get a little bit higher than that. Let's at least do one full component of their project. And so I think I proposed 15. I don't know if others have a counter proposal to that, or if this is also one that we want to mark to say, maybe we come back to again.
Well, I think we added up the equipment piece combined is 15,680.
680, yep.
So I would say we start at 16 and flag it as something we can come back to.
And is that including the artist, the fee for the
That's
artist?
not including the artist funds,
So I would say the technology and maybe half of the stipend for the artist.
That's
which would be
Mark's
20, which
proposal,
would be
yeah.
20,340, which is what
Okay.
Mark suggested.
I
would be
think I
okay
would
with
also
that.
support that, Liz.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree.
Okay, let's put 20,340,
Yep.
which funds their equipment and 2
Okay.
guest artists, and we'll flag it to come back if we needed.
All right.
All right, Escucha Mi Voz Iowa on page 91. This one
The hard part is finding it.
back in your rubric, yeah.
Just ask next year to number the rubric. Mark.
I'll have to ask Stephanie for that.
That's management
My name.
Do we have a break in between?
Would you like a break?
I need to go, but I can take my break.
Or you can just, if
Okay,
you need
yeah.
to, you can.
Thanks.
There it is.
Okay. On this one, I think I like this project. It's, I think there is a significant direct impact on affordable housing for immigrants, connecting them to services. There's a big network of local partnerships that they have. I mean, that list is pretty extensive in here. Latin countries, as well as the Congo, Sudan, Angola. I think their vision for success has some solid, actual metrics to look at. The one thing that I did note was the budget is heavy on salaries.
Yes.
So I think this is one where we look at
Yep.
maybe splitting some of that out, but I think the project itself is important.
I agree, and I actually wish we had a little bit more information about the program aspect of the budget that they proposed to us, but I think if I draw some conclusions from the entire application, I think that we can see what that project funds would be spent towards. I would propose a maximum of $7,500 for this project, specifically because they have added everything apart from the program is, I think, related to operational costs,
Operational.
including, so if we take that 6,000 and we include a 25%, that comes to 7,500 for this project. For me, from a kind of moving outside of the budget for a second and getting a little bit into the details, I do think that the focus of this, of the Housing and Migrant Health Services project. It's going to serve a community that desperately needs it in really thoughtful and evidence-based ways. I think that there's a huge opportunity there. There's a number of people that, large groups actually, that have been listed in the, point number 4 on how it will advance racial equity and social justice. The parts of the application that I think I'd like to see a little bit more detail on are the timeline, so what's feasible within the timeline provided, and maybe my extrapolation too about our grant period. So for the fiscal year from, summer 2024 to summer 2025, just thinking about all those things happening in that time frame. And then a little bit more on the vision of success would be really helpful when it comes to this project. But otherwise, I think the allocating what we can based on the budget they provided to us, my proposal is 7,500.
I agree. I like this project a lot. It's serving underserved populations.
The travel and training piece in the budget, professional and membership development, it's not technically a salary, does that count as professional services, or would that be permissible?
Those were the two things that I highlighted
Yep.
for funding too.
So professional services, we actually don't have a limit on. So if they're hiring professional services, as far as I understand it, that are outside of the organization, that are serving the project, that's where we can get all the vendor fees and things like that. That's totally fine. It's where the,
Rent,
yeah. and
office supplies.
So the things that kind of benefit the institution, the organization, is where we have set a limit for that. And so that
25%.
feels like capacity building for the institution, which is, we
Yeah.
tend to be a little bit more project-based and program-based in our grants.
So what about the program where it says the food, the clothing, the transportation, and
That's-
travel and training? Are those both acceptable for this application, but not the
That's
staff
my
cost?
understanding,
Okay.
right, yeah. So my initial thought here was 18,000.
Right.
The travel, training, and the
Yeah.
program.
Because I think when you look at it from the perspective of their actual services, right, they need the people to do that service and make that connection and intervene if there's a crisis and help with the workshop. So that's why I believe they valued the staff in here, but I understand that for this purpose, we have to look at the direct impact of the other ways, which is the program and the services.
So tell me, because I might have a different understanding, tell me the travel and training, how were you interpreting those expenses, that 12,000?
My understanding, for travel and training, when I
Or
read,
the proposal for that would equate to 18. So I have the 6 from the program. And then the
Right.
12, was that all coming from travel and training?
it says the membership development as well.
That's what I said, because those are the only two items in there that aren't in that operational category. They're not payroll, rent, utilities, or supplies.
Right. And they've mentioned like transporting over 100 immigrant and refugee workers to passport appointments in Chicago. From personal experience working with refugees, that is a significant
Yes.
stressor for
Yes.
them. So, and there were other organizations that funded the travel, but I think they're pretty low on so they're less likely to get funding. They're pretty low on our list. So I appreciate the travel part of
Yeah.
this.
This is an awkward inquiry, but given all the hassle about current immigration. Are we vulnerable with this grant?
What do you mean?
I didn't
do you mean by
understand your
vulnerable?
question. Yeah.
I even hate to ask the question because I'm thrilled with this and I want to go forward with it as generously as we can. I'm simply asking a question about the environment that's been created in our nation and state. I think we need to stand tall in the face of it, but I think we need to recognize that's what we're doing.
Regardless of that, we already had like over 200 refugees that came in
Yes.
a few months ago. So we already have a big refugee population that is underserved within the community. So
Yes.
whether new people are allowed to come in or not, it might still be helpful, I think.
But Mark, you're saying maybe like a political risk in taking on this project. Is that your concern?
Bring it on.
Yeah.
But that's the good thing that we're not
Yeah.
political.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're
At our
saying,
last
but
meeting, when I said my goal for us this year is to have Kim Reynolds know personally what our commission, so there we go.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Yes, that's it.
is this what you're saying we call, good
I know
trouble?
nothing.
Exactly. Good trouble. Exactly, Liz.
You know something I always said about immigration, and yes, we have to get it right, but I always say if you ask any older person in the 65 and 70, white male, they'll tell you how proud they are because of their heritage. They're from the Czech, they're from the German, they're from the this. They do. But those are also the same people that are against new people coming in. So let's keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who are you sitting next to?
An old white man. But he's
I don't mind being put in a box. I just want to be able to name the box.
But he is here sitting with us advocating for that
I think another
with us.
Yeah, another consideration is that a lot of immigrant populations are not entitled to federal funding
Yeah.
because of the nature of their backgrounds, and we have the privilege to be able to fund people or those projects, which is why.
I want to go back to something Kelsey said first. You came up with 7,500.
But that's because I think that was because I'm confused. I'm confused. So when we have I proposed 7,500 because that was the 6,000 for the program with an additional 25% for the operational cost.
Oh, okay.
But Liz has said that actually the travel and the training, and Doug agrees, that 12,000 might also be something that we could support. I interpreted that as like professional development funds for those that are within the organization, but that's such a large amount that I think I must be
Right.
wrong.
Yeah. Or maybe some X2.
Yeah, so we don't have enough information to say. I think we just have to go with the right
budget.
amount of allocation that we can, based on the amount of work
Yeah.
and the ratings that we've all provided.
Then John Vish suggested a transportation 6,000 with the clothing, and then you add the professional development, so it came into like
12,000.
18,000.
18,000.
No. I mean, I think even something like 10,000, 6,000 for travel, and then maybe 4,000. So cutting costs across both. But I mean, the reason why I'm so much on travel is because
Yeah.
on page 94 they have listed like 5 to 6 things that they will use the travel funding for, which there is no other services sort of available other than like I know that Iowa City Mobility also has some of those services, but they prioritize medical appointments and they don't go all the way to Cedar Rapids or Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the accurate interpretation,
Yeah.
not my interpretation. Yeah. So you've said 10,000. I would support that. But are there other thoughts on the amount of allocation for this application?
I'm just thinking, how many organizations do we have in town, in this area that serve the same needs and the same, urgency?
Sorry, what?
How
Well,
many similar organizations or institutions in here? They have the same mission and the same,
as of the immigrant
Yes,
service, there's quite a few. But I think a lot of them also, for lack of a better word, are serving specific group.
well, this is what I'm gonna get into, is
Yeah.
that I think this is a newly, it's been in business for 2 years now, as indicates here. And I think
Escucha my
always,
voice?
yeah,
I
this
think
is
they've
what it
been
says
around
right here,
for.
isn't it? It says 2
It
years.
says 2 years, but I don't know if that's a project or the organization.
Viana, from what you're saying, I think 26 and 27 on our list over there are the two other organizations where I saw similar
Yes.
interests, but they are pretty low on our.
Well, this is, like if other organizations were funded before, and maybe they have a specific target they go after, I think it's a good idea to give a chance for newly, upcoming, organizations. Maybe, they serve a different kind, of
Yeah.
people from different backgrounds, different mission, different, people, different ideas and motivations too. So I think, it's,
Good point. Yes, because we have a number of organizations serving the immigrant. I think they are serving different group.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is a community that's in need.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it definitely requires more partners in that space. I do appreciate that they've only been in existence for 2 years, and they have a great amount of support as well across, which is very impressive. I would support the program and the training as well, the professional area.
about we support half of the professional area
Yeah.
and half of the other stuff. So that gives us to what John Vicana was saying, 10,000.
So I would say the full in the food and clothing and transportation, and then half of the travel and training.
So 12,000.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that too.
I would support that.
I'm fine with
But
it.
travel and the clothes were 6,000, so.
Right.
Yes.
And then half of the.
Half of
Half
the
of
travel and
the-
training. Yep.
Yeah.
So 6 and 6.
That's 12.
And I think, as it grows by next year, we'll have better, indications and hopefully apply again and,
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that, so for those that have received grants from our last cycle, they would already know this, but we are specifically trying to develop relationships with those who receive racial equity and social justice grants, and also be really transparent in our feedback of like why we've made certain decisions about
Yeah.
the grant application process. And so really what it is about, we are limited here, but maybe there's other opportunities that we can connect our community organizations with and these projects with. So that's also, I think, something we're trying to incorporate in addition to the funds. With that said, I would
Yes.
support 12,000 for this project as well, Liz. Mark?
I'm all in.
12,000.
All right.
Okay.
We are making our way through.
Okay, we're just over 85,000 so far. Next up is Community Crisis Center, page 146. Probably about 10 rubrics further back from where we were. So 146. Okay.
I opened this one first, so it helps from the list.
Because I grew up in Iowa, I'm not really relevant to this conversation, but I'm very interested in it in terms of culturally appropriate foods.
And I will show they did receive 14,500 from
They
us
did.
last year.
And that was, they asked for more and we
That
kind of
was-
dropped it
yeah,
because.
it was the same project.
It was the same project.
Thank you.
And some of the discussion was that, yes, of course, we want people to get their culturally food.
What was the,
But also, when you're hungry, there's a lot of food that we have in our regular pantry that can satisfy some of their needs too.
so how was
that's-
their report?
I think they were able to do quite a lot with the money from the
Yes.
last report that I read. I think it's been several months since they shared information
of
with
course.
us from last year's grant cycle, but I think that they had an estimated number of how families that they were able to service with also a diversity of basically home foods of different types of foods it seemed like it was making an impact with what they did. you can see too that they have partnerships with a lot of our local grocery stores as well too. So this is like in addition to the partnerships and maybe in-kind opportunities that are collaborated on between those grocery stores and this organization. I would personally say that I rank this quite high in my individual scores because I do think it has a significant direct impact. I think it reaches community members that need it. I think that a hungry person has to address a lot of those needs first. Hunger and safety come first. But I would also say that because we funded this exact project last year, this is the last year that we could do that. And so already starting to kind of think about less than what we did last year, in addition to if we agreed to support them, channeling and connecting them specifically on this project with potential other opportunities and other options, other fundraising or grant raising opportunities.
What did we fund? What was the amount for last year?
14,500.
14,000.
Yeah, I would agree with the lesser funding, but I would support this project because, especially for African new immigrant communities that are from a certain section, there are lots of food banks, food pantries available, but not all of them have like halal meat or culturally appropriate sort of food options. So I liked this project for that reason.
So I would propose funding them at half of what they've requested at $10,000.
I would agree with that. I noticed too, they received some funding through ARPA as well, and
They,
Yeah, there's quite a bit of
they
other
do
funding
get
they've got.
quite a bit of funding from
Yeah.
a lot of the, they also get AIDS to agency, they also get CDBG, so, well, it's not for the same project, but, you know,
Right.
they're doing a lot of stuff. They,
Yeah.
you know, crisis communities, not only you have the food and security, but you have the mental health and a lot of stuff. So, but for this project, I'm good with supporting some partial funding as well.
I was thinking of 7,000 as they have mentioned. I mean, when in the question of can this be completed with less funding, and that was the amount that also came to my mind. So that would be the amount on my head.
That's what they're saying, that they can contribute from their own funds in unrestricted food bank dollars, that they can spend then of those resources, 7,000, towards specifically purchasing culturally appropriate food items. So we would essentially be matching, if we did 7,000, what they can do within their current
Right.
configurations.
Yeah. It looks like they've gotten 7,000 also from unrestricted food bank contributions.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, which might be the money that they're talking about? Okay.
I know, it's hard to see it back and forth.
I agree with you, John B. I thought 7,000 was in my head, matching that. Again, it was, I think, a successful project, and this would be the last year we'd be able to fund it. So I would go up to 10.
I believe this is like a life commitment project. Like they have to keep going every year because the immigrants will be here forever, you know, and
Yeah.
God knows
What
if it's going to get worse or not even, you know. So they have to work every year to start, you know, funding such mission.
Right.
But since you're like, you know, from somebody who came from a different country here, usually the food is not the main issue that impacts our lives, you know.
Yes.
Like, you know, if you have shelter, if you have safety, that's what
Yes.
comes first.
Yes.
The food you can manage or eating anything. So
Yes.
yes, while it's important for some people, but you can alter the way that you eat. It could be even healthier than what you used to eat, or it could be the other way, depending on what you choose. But it's a great project, and but you know, as you said, if it was funded before, and this is like it's going to be ongoing every year, so maybe we should give, you know, we still have a long list to go through. So I think you know, halfway maybe.
7?
Yeah.
More on that, yeah.
I completely
7.
agree with you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
a
what I
very
was
good
trying
point.
to
Yes.
say. That, you know, you can get beans from the
Yes.
crisis center and cook it completely different for different cultures. So I don't think it's a food, just having your kind of food.
I know.
Because when you're hungry,
Yeah.
And believe me, like even the quality of the food, if you come to the quality of
Right.
food, it does not taste the same thing. Even
Yeah.
if it's, the same spices we use back home, it's totally different.
Yeah, so,
All right, so before I start drawing Maslow's hierarchy of needs here for us, we're going to go move on to Right House of Fashion. Page 15, it's the third rubric. I believe this one also was funded. It sounds familiar.
I think we funded them fully last year,
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
$25,000.
25,000. They were probably I think they were the highest ranking score last year, so
That was for a specific.
it was for specific
event.
events
Yeah.
though.
It had a lot of stage costs and things like
Yeah.
that, yep.
Right. And Roger, did you attend that event? I remember you talking about
I have
something.
attended a couple of their events, and I have not attended what they're proposing right here, bringing people from different places. So, but I also know they also got some ARPA funding. I think they got 100,000 from ARPA. They are bringing in a lot of, they are serving people from different backgrounds, especially the youth. You see a lot of them being served over there. But I don't know if 25,000 is what we need. What page would that be now? 17?
15, 16, yeah.
My book is falling apart.
Yeah. Well, we have less than 8,000 left without going back and, reducing what we've kind of already tentatively put in there. So, things that I liked about this, the list of organizations that they partner with, and with a kind of an intersectionality approach between youth of BIPOC and
Yeah.
LGBTQ communities.
It wasn't clear to me the impact that we could expect to see from this project, including like how many youth and how many people would be serviced by it. Was that clear as you were reading through?
Yeah,
this?
there were not many measurables.
Right.
Yes, that's in my notes too. Yeah, that it's hard to measure. And the outcomes, like,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
stated clearly or on the USAID, so.
Well, in the budget, though, it does say just the goal, but it doesn't talk about the outcome.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that like the
Like 30
participants would be the
students, yeah.
30 quantity?
Yeah.
Thank you.
My first thought was just to be able to fund one of the many projects that are listed on it, like either the field trip, I like the Right House Creative Lab opportunity. So the field trip, for example, is $4,500, and that would just take participants to meet artists, which I thought was and especially if they're taking this, participants who might not have had those other opportunities, it can be a significant contributor to career growth and sort of that being able to look up to that. So maybe just
And it
funding
addresses
one.
equity as well, right? Because
Yes,
you
it
have
does.
those students who wouldn't otherwise be able to.
I feel that sometimes there are, and I'm probably speaking about things I actually don't know about, but I think for nonprofit organizations, there can sometimes be like the Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop software. Sometimes there are programs where you can receive that for free if you contact those companies directly. So I wonder if there's maybe even some cost savings here. Maybe they've already explored that. Maybe I'm totally out of turn in saying that, but I think it would be interesting to kind of focus, as you're saying, John V, on one of the other aspects of the budget and what we could help support.
Right, they could also sort of, I'm wondering if they could partner with the University of Iowa and get some of those software-related access.
Yeah, they do list the university as well as the school district as
They are their partners,
so-
yeah.
So John V, I think you proposed 4,500. Is that right?
That was on my mind.
I like the field
like that
trip.
idea.
I like the graduation for those kids that can have graduation. I'm not big on the software because I think we can probably work with a couple partners to get the software. So I think partial funding is,
I would suggest 4,500.
I agree with John V. and Doug. Other discussion?
Any others?
I have a trivial thing to say.
Okay.
It only has to do with grammar and synonyms. They talk on page 18 about we'll have minimal cost, but we'll provide a scholarship. I don't think they're providing scholarships, they're providing grants.
yes, they are grants.
In our culture, we use words not carefully. We're providing grants. Further, a lot of people are anxious to do something. No, they're eager to do something. Anyway, trivial, but we're going to provide grants in this grant. Okay, I'll be quiet about my silliness.
Okay, we're at 97,148.
Without any adjustment.
Without any adjustments, correct. So let's go on to Greater Iowa City, Inc. Let's see, where is that one? That one's towards the back, page 179.
Spring is in there. Well, mine says 180.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the table of contents is 179, but
Yeah, I got you.
We have less than 2,000, right?
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I really like this program. I think we might be the wrong place for it. And the reason I say that is the same reason I said last year, which is I think a lot of the business development programs, they're so important, and I'm so grateful to see them, especially when they service our minority groups or immigrant groups within our community. Sometimes these ones are harder for me in thinking about the best use of our resources when it might be a business development project for 8 businesses, and there's a lot of kind of like investment risk with that. We don't know what will happen with it. I know that they've said how they will track outcomes. Like, I so believe in this. I just wonder if this is the right grant program for it. So that's kind of the reason for my personal scoring on it. I'm really open to hearing how you all read it, though.
I'm open to hearing other things too, but I do agree with that. I had the same thought. I also am a little hesitant on projects that are like grants to fund grants.
Yeah.
Right? And so, because it separates us from just another level from where that money's actually going, takes a little bit of the control out of our hands, and with all of the applications that we have and so many of them that have a more direct impact from the actual funds we give.
I guess, I looked at it as the newbie on the block too is, so we have this money to support direct impact, right? So for this grant, it looks like we're supporting direct impact for professionals of color. We're starting their businesses, almost like a microloan.
Yep.
So for me, it's just the other aspect of our community. Like, how do we support also that success? So that's the direct impact that I see.
I had originally thought of that too, with the narrative of the project is it wants to support small business owned by BIPOC, women, LGBTQ+. However, in the demographic, it's not, it's 48% diversity, I would say. And there have been other projects with a lot, like 85% diversity. And because this is racial equity, true, that is, so now I know I've ranked it pretty high in my scoring, but to your point, and seeing the equity compared to the other projects now makes me agree with you more.
As someone who really believes in micro grants, this is also why I'm conflicted on this
Yeah.
one. But I do think that it's best placed for like a business development kind of scenario, especially because there are like it lists at least eight businesses, and so the impact of that we can. There certainly is an impact of that, and don't get me wrong, because that might result in 5 businesses that really hire and employ several people in our community, and it's a long-standing business. I think there's just a lot of spaces where I wonder if that maybe there's other business development opportunities available to them. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, just looking at the budget with the 1.5 million, like your
Yeah,
budget,
yeah.
the
I saw
organization
that
annual
too.
budget. I think, that's just, a flag for me, like, giving a
we
grant
funded this
through different, commission.
Oh, okay.
Liz, I'm sorry, what was your question?
Sorry, did we fund this already? It says here, or am I reading that wrong?
No, I don't think we,
think
Greater
so.
Iowa City, I don't think
No.
we did.
Unless it was, yeah,
No.
You might be thinking of Better Together.
Or
unless it was a different name.
Well, Greater Iowa City is not kind of like the old chamber that
Oh, okay.
mixed up. There used to be different names, so. But I don't think we funded it. I think no.
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not on the list.
At the same time, the organization right next to that is also very appealing to me. So, I mean, to see your
which one, sorry?
Right. And, as we get up closer to that 100,000 now, that kind of leads me into saying, at this point, looking down the rest of the list, we've been going by the average of our group, but, if there is something that an individual commissioner or a project that you want to discuss that we haven't yet.
I think we went by our average. We all score differently, and we just went on that.
Yep.
I think we have some organization here. This is their first ever applying for Black Voices project. I don't think we ever funded them ever. I think it's the first time. Just looking at some of those, the Immigrant Network, Welcome Network. This is it's a new organization. That we never funded them ever. So yes, there's some stuff that for me I score high, but it's the average score
Yeah.
we put together. So you respect that, and sometimes it knocks the project that you really love out there. I don't think we have any more money to stretch, and even all those organizations, a lot of them are asking quite significant amount.
Right.
It will involve really cutting some of the one that score high just to fulfill some of them. So I'd rather lean the other way, look at whatever we have left, and look at the organization that we give partial funding. How can we spread some of that up there instead of
Yeah.
going down and looking at who we can pull up?
So you're saying that we take that last, 2,000 whatever and go back and
Yeah.
increase funding for some of the places that we've
Or
already
increase it to the last project we funded, which was White House of Fashion. So instead of the 4,500, they get 6,000 or something like that.
One thing that I'm also considering is the skewing, because there are outliers for certain projects, with most of us have given it a high score. One of us has given it a very low score.
Yeah.
Sort of bringing the mean significantly lower. However, it makes sense to have.
Yeah, that's the system we have, though.
Right, that is, but that's why I want to open it up.
Yeah.
If there is one that we have not
If-
discussed yet that a commissioner would like to discuss,
If there were projects that were like 5,000, 10,000, that it was really reachable, I can see that. But you're looking at some of the projects like Black Voices project, 25,000. There's no way we can swing that.
Right.
There's an example of one that I read it, and I gave it a low mark because I wanted to know what they're going to do and how they're going to measure it. I'm looking at Morningside Glendale Neighborhood Association. You see it down there, it's 2565. And they would settle for half of that if they didn't buy the books. I thought, how are you going to get people to come together to read the book? And it was all sorts of presumption, but I just liked the feeling of it because it was one of those neighborhood associations that the city's been excited about.
Can you name the organization again?
Morningside Glendale Neighborhood Association. It's
That's
number
true.
22.
That's true.
And I'm not really advocating for it. It's a little one. It's neighborhood association. They're going to buy some books. They want people to come together and read a book and have a conversation. But I think the idea is if we get together and we have some food and we'll get to know each other and it'll be a good thing. Did the Morningside or Glendale neighborhood do something last year?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think
All
so.
right. Well, anyway, I'm sort of rambling, and I'm also doing a math guy, like, where am I going to spend $2,500?
Yeah.
Right.
Or do I want
yeah.
to go back up and see, oh, wait a minute, who did we cut?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's an impossible question because really, like, there's so many excellent projects.
Exactly.
So I think we should continue this conversation. I think you were onto something with the outliers, John V. And I think maybe like identifying, like there's some cases where like most of us have rated it really high and we have one person who has rated it like the lowest possible. Only a couple, but I think it's just important to see like, for example, the Center for Worker Justice project, I was a little bit confused. There's many of us that have it in like our higher level of rankings. That might be one where I'd be interested in just talking about that. But in addition to that, wherever we land today, I do want us to like actually petition or propose like an additional 50,000 at least, based
Yeah.
on like the number of
Yes.
projects that are still very highly rated by us, but we are not able to even like consider based on, or it'd be difficult to consider based on the amount of resources that we have available. So maybe there, if approved, maybe there's an opportunity to come back to them.
Well, and relative to that, I'm just going to use number 21, Johnson County Interfaith Coalition.
Yeah.
What they did was they applied for a lot of grants to distribute it, and it was not really for them, but rather these
No.
other organizations that they wanted to support.
Yep.
And I felt like it had a consciousness about, there's a lot of good stuff out there going on. How can we get them some money? And I thought that was an attempt to do that. And I think it's the same thing you're talking about in terms of outliers.
Yeah,
We need more
Center
money.
for Worker Justice, up to date, some of the things that we have talked about, we have funded them many
Quite a
years.
bit, yeah.
And they also got funding from other sources, so I probably rated them a little lower based on that. When I
Center for Worker Justice has received this grant in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2023.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so,
I would agree with you then.
Good job.
that's kind of like the same
Well, I mean,
discussion that we had for the houses
Got
to
it right
home, Yeah, I would say not just discuss the project for the sake of discussing them because we all have, spent significant time going through them. I say we have about $2,000 left. We bump up the last project and we look at the one that we highlighted. If we want to reduce anything, if not, then that'll be our recommendation because we got 542,000 requests and we only have 100,000. Somewhere, somebody's always not going to be pleased.
I also have a proposal if we want to first look at if we want to cut costs for that or not, because if we end up cutting costs and get like $2,000 or $3,000 more, then that gives us $5,000 to fund a whole new project. Or the other option is to use this up for the already funded organizations.
True.
Well, we only have 4 projects that we highlighted to review. So we can either review them, cut 10% or 20%, that boosts how much we have left. But I know we had
5,000
significant
for
discussion
everyone.
on those before we even proposed those amounts.
The first thing that was on my mind was with regards to Open Heartland. I absolutely love the organization, and I was thinking, could we, because they had requested 13,738.
We gave them a full
We
fund.
gave them the full as of now, and I was wondering if we could make it 10 or 11. $10,000 was on my mind, but I don't know what, I mean, but this project I know is beautiful too, so would be open to what people think.
Community.
I think we've set ourselves up for an impossible task
Yeah.
of pulling resources from one to pay another. And that's, I think, going to be challenging no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably would be more in favor of taking what's left and
I say,
increasing some of the partials.
I say we take what left and add it to the last one that we funded, and we make that recommendation, because I can see us, needling 1,000 here, 1,000 there, but I don't know if we'll get it. It doesn't make sense when a project asks for 25,000, they end up with 2,000.
2,000.
It doesn't make sense, because I know what we're trying to do. It's ideal, but we're not gonna be able to satisfy just many projects. So that's just my thinking.
My other
But we
thought,
can keep discussing it until.
right. My other thought was like houses into homes. Where we know it's, what is it, $200 per kit?
No, with $2,500,
Or 20
you'd have 20 kids.
We give them 60 kids.
Yeah,
So increasing that, yep.
increasing that, right?
I would be in favor of that too. In terms of like other projects that are still fairly highly ranked, I'm actually really interested in Film Scene's Latin Film Festival. I think that that's a really interesting opportunity for our community, and that is also one where they've said, the scale of the programming is going to change. They've got a full year to continue fundraising as well, because it's set to take place in April 2025. Now, I know there's maybe more pressing priorities for our community in the sense of like within just the next calendar year, but that was one that did stand out to me. If that would be impacted by even maybe $3,000, just under.
I think Film Scene can raise the money to fund our project, really.
I couldn't really hear, but I don't know if I was.
He said, what was it you said, Roger?
I said, I think Film Scene can probably raise that fund to fund this project. They have great supporters, and I'm one of their supporters. So I just don't know where you're gonna pull that to. I will entertain how we're gonna cut so we can even look into backfilling that. That you got, because I'm looking at project here that they can use the funding like the new Immigrant Welcome Network, but I'm being a realist. They're asking 23,000. How much are we gonna cut to fund, even part of that? So,
Well,
You know-
if you look at their budget and you look at their music and local artists is at 1,200, and documentation and the photography is 600. There's also overhead, programming
are you talking about Film
Marketing.
Scene or?
for Film Scene,
Oh, okay.
119. If we wanted to support some of those costs, we could. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Liz, I so appreciate you like adding on to my suggestion. And I'm immediately going to negate myself. Because I mean, for both of these projects that we're discussing, both the film scene, Latino Film Festival, excuse me, and then also for the Immigrant Welcome Network, which I think I heard suggested down there. I think it's all very worthy projects. I did notice that in the Immigrant Welcome Network for Johnson County, while we may not be able to fully fund them in the request in any way, shape, or form, if we wanted to, for example, help provide money for mattresses, that's one aspect that's almost exactly the budget that we have left, $2,800. So that's another kind of, it's a nice to have. I'm not sure if that, in that case, they would be able to use that if we only partially fund, but
I think the other part I like about, and not to cut you off, but the other part that I like about that application is there are a lot of segments, right? They help with landlord with application fees. They help with the first month's rent. They give basic grocery gift cards. There are a lot of pieces there that even a couple thousand will fund some of that.
And they also don't have other funding sources.
Right.
The only
And it's a
thing-
fairly new organization that yeah. Go ahead, Bianna.
I just feel guilty going down the line, skipping through
Yes.
lots of things when the priority goes to them first.
Yeah.
So, my suggestion, if we're going to do that, we better just, give the extra fund to the previous ones that we selected and leave it that way. Or we just have to go in order.
Yeah.
I'm actually okay with an approach where we are still looking at the outliers, where they are, by and large, still ranked quite highly, but then where there's some cases where, like, there's a couple of lower scores. And so I think if there's one that we want to advocate for, I think that's totally fine in the approach. And especially if there's a good idea that maybe just had a weak application, which sometimes is why it's a lower score, right? Because if the application just isn't strong enough, that's sometimes what indicates that lower score. But I've made a couple suggestions, so I'm open if there's an alternative suggestion of how we want to allocate the remaining resources.
A principle that I've followed, whenever anybody does an application to buy a van or buy 2 vans, I want to see the maintenance and repair and the gas budget, and they're never there.
And the insurance, too.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why I give them low marks.
I'm really okay using the remaining funding the organization that we already fund.
All right.
We have
Okay.
had an
Let's-
So that would
intense
go back to-
discussion on all those things.
I think so, and we've kind of been going back and
Yes,
forth here. Let's
because
make that
otherwise-
a motion, and I'll second it. And
Well,
let's
I make that
actually-
motion
yeah.
that we've used the remaining 2,000 something to fund organization we already fund. Otherwise, I'm with Vienna that we have to review every one, which we all did. Then we have to discuss everyone, which it's not fair to many of them. So we already have intensive discussion on all those things. So let's use whatever we have, 2,000 something left, and either add it to the last one, White House's fashion, or let's look at an organization that we partially funded and increase their.
So the motion is to stop debate and take the remaining funds and allocate them to the projects that we've already discussed. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right. So that gets us to one step. All right. Now,
right.
now we've got that. Now let's look at those,
looking at
11 or so here.
Looking
Where
at
we want to go.
Looking at number 12, Wright House.
Okay. Let's look at Wright House.
Fashion, they're the ones that took the biggest hit from their request.
Yeah, that is true.
Yep.
So it'd be easiest just to give that to them.
Yep. You want to make that a motion?
Well,
For the sake of conversation, I'll make that the motion.
For sake of conversation.
I know there was a budget-based kind of suggestion, right? So let's
But we talked,
take a
yeah.
look at it and, yeah.
If you look at it, they also had that budget base, which they helped with graduation of people.
There are also the inspirational speakers in their budget. That's 800. So, okay. Yeah, we funded the field trips.
Yeah.
So 2751, 76.
I was also thinking the instructor, although we can't probably fund the whole thing, but it seems like a very reasonable price for the amount of work that'll go into doing the instructions. Or the graduation ceremony.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The graduation ceremony plus the guest
And
teachers
the guest
would,
speaker, so
would
that will take
pretty
the whole
much would
thing.
take us very close to 100.
Yeah. Do we have a consensus?
I think so.
I think there are maybe, impact is such a difficult thing. I think I was just thinking about, what that money would mean in terms of like additional resources to some of the other organizations that are here. And I think that's it's an impossible valuation, really. But, someone made the suggestion about like more kits for houses and homes. I kind of got latched onto that. I thought it was a good suggestion. But if there's some like specific allocation, sorry, could you remind me again which one, the graduation ceremony?
We're looking at graduation ceremony, which is 1,800, and possibly the speaker,
So
which kind of
Okay.
takes the
Oh,
funding.
okay.
So,
Sure. But yeah, I think we can do that. And then
I'll be
that would
back.
make a total of, what exactly did we get there?
It's going to be, we'll still have, I think, a few hundred.
7153.
Yeah.
Okay.
16.
16, you said?
7153. 60.
Okay.
60.
60.
We'll
thank you.
still have 300 or something, right? Oh, just
199. Yeah.
you have $200 left.
Yeah.
we have $200 left. Well, I know where we can put
Like,
it.
198. 16. Yeah.
I was thinking to Roger's suggestion on houses into homes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much was each one of those kids?
$125 per
I
household.
think we just give him the
Yeah.
whole remaining of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is.
Let's not look for
199.
$199.
Specifically, I think it should be 198.14. 16.
16.
16, sorry.
196.14, you said?
198.16. That's my mental calculation. You need to put it in.
That's right. So
So, 76. 98.16. Perfect.
Ding.
All right. Okay, so I do think that, and our audience is left, we're still being recorded for the session as well, but I do think that like we can all agree that this was really hard. And not even like accounting for the many, many hours I know that we all spent reading these applications. I do think that there's a couple of reflections I had from going through this round as opposed to last year too. One was I really don't want to see, it was difficult to review ones that felt like they had some ChatGPT produced text, which those ones ended up kind of lower on the list, but I do think it's something that as we're thinking about the advice for next year's applications, like I would so much rather see 3 sentences that directly answer the question than a full page
Yeah.
that is from ChatGPT personally. And so that, I think we might need to be updating our grant application advice for next year. The second thing is, if we want to do new projects, which is what I think I've heard us kind of circulate around, rather than, these larger grant requests that really are about foundational operational expenses, and increasing the possibility of what these organizations can do. Maybe we should be a little bit more explicit in that and provide a little bit more guidance where, we're not necessarily looking for the breakdown of the budget of the entire organization. We really do just want to know how the money would be spent for a finite project. And we received a lot this year that I think, I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then once I got to the budget, I understood the context for the request a little bit more deeply, and that it was organization-wide. So those would be the couple of things in addition to, for us to revise on our application process. But then additionally, I do think we should go ahead and make a request to City Council for additional funds.
I mean, there are, what do we have here, 28 or so serious applications, and we were able to discuss 11 before we hit our limit. So, yeah, I think I would agree with that.
And also, if you look at the average, what that means is that all of the projects that we looked at, on average, had to be ranked mostly at 5s, with some 4s from us, across all of those 7 questions.
I would also add on the application process, if it was possible. I know that some were able to answer it, but to be clearer on how they plan to continue their efforts. I feel like that was a piece that, if they talked about that, that ranked high for me, because then it's just not a one-shot deal.
Another thing that I was thinking about was, can there be a way to see what their target population has been and how many of them have they actually reached in their other projects? That could be a useful data to see the success of the organization, because some of the organizations we know personally, and that's why we know that they're successful, but that would be helpful. And the other thing I was thinking of, on rating of 1 to 5, that was more difficult because it was on a Likert scale of agree to disagree. If we had a point system, or for example, 1 to 10, on 1 that you really think this is a great project, you really think it's not a good project, and 10, that might be easier to then get that's just my
I'm
idea.
just being an advocate for, I'm so glad at least we have it this way, because before it was a nightmare, the rubric we followed.
Yeah.
And
Last year was the first year for the rubric, wasn't
The
it?
new rubric,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was Siri and Amy, I think, no, Angie,
Ashley?
Ashley, sorry. I knew it was an A word, I'm old.
Yeah, so I mean, the rubric is really helpful. I was just thinking, if you make it 1 to 10, then the chances, firstly, of outliers, and secondly, of, because some things I agreed with, but I did not want to rate it high, but I had to keep a 4 because I agree with that, but that's not the project that I really think needs funding from us.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think
So John V's going to rewrite the rubric.
I'm
I
happy
think-
to.
If we need, to discuss the application more at length, I think that's something we can probably put in our regular meeting as well, or create a subcommittee to look into that. I know it took a lot of work to come up with even this rubric, because the one we had before, it was difficult to rank all those or to score those grants. And I think the grant is just becoming more, not popular, but more people are aware of it. So, because we have done a good job of really pushing that to the community. So this is just a product of the work that we've been doing, really letting the community know that we have this grant. So,
I just want to congratulate everybody that you read the stuff and you read it. Liz, welcome to the Human Rights Commission. Did you know you were going to get
Yeah.
into something this big?
Yeah, this was
And
quite the
There were
time.
times when I got up, I'm retired, but I'm busy, and I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work on this
Yeah.
because I knew I didn't have time rest of the day. It was that important. And my wife would say, "What are you doing?" And I'd just say, HR.
yeah.
Can I just ask one question? I don't know if people are aware of that, but I thought one of the organizations, which was actually last on the list, I wonder if there was any sort of a language barrier. Is there a way that we can sort of address organizations. I mean, I don't know about that organization specifically, but I wonder if there are organizations within the community that might not be able to write a grant in English. Is there?
I believe there's organizations that cannot write grants at all. Like I keep saying that some people are expert at grant writing, some people never wrote a grant in their life before, so we always have to take those into consideration. They can also reach out, to Stephanie. I don't know how many of them actually do, but,
Yeah.
So how many organizations were granted last year total?
we can get that number from Stephanie. I don't think I remember that on top of my
How
head.
many,
How many we granted last year?
I want to say 8.
Yeah.
Eight,
Oh,
about
no.
eight.
It was- We had one for every commissioner then assigned, and except for one that was split for 2.
So-
So that's
That's
roughly,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we have
So we've been
to,
able to help more organizations this year.
yes.
That's great.
So
The other question I had, and this is for you, Stephanie, are rubrics public record?
Yes.
Yes, we have to leave.
We
the
turn
rubric.
those with
Yep,
you.
and any notes you took, some people told me they didn't use the rubric. That's fine, but whatever you were taking notes on is discoverable too. Whether or not somebody will request it, we've only had one request in the grant's been around since 2017, so it's
Yeah.
more likely that there will not be one, but just in case, I need the notes and/or rubric before you leave today, please.
and we need to
And
turn
thank
those
you.
into you before we leave tonight.
Yeah, because otherwise it's a struggle to get
Right.
them.
Well, we have to vote to make a recommendation to the council, right?
We do,
First,
yes,
so,
right, yeah,
So
but-
I motioned we make the recommendation to the council for the possible grantee that we have selected, and I also add to that motion to request an additional $50,000 for next year.
So a motion to
Keep those
approve the
two separate
recommendations
ones.
as listed and request an additional $50,000.
You want that as two motions?
Yeah, because
Two,
the way
okay.
the recommendations go to council, they're
If
two
they
separate.
say no to the 50, then
Right,
they
right.
have to say no. Okay,
It's a
yeah.
double barrel.
That
I
was
will
the
move
trick,
for-
because they can't
See,
say
look at this
no.
politician down here. Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, because there's a resolution that would be attached for the grants, and the
Right.
request is just a request.
That
I
was
just think
the
it's
trick.
cleaner to,
All right, so can we have a new motion, please?
thank you.
Roger.
I motion to recommend the selected grantee for the 2024
Social justice.
Social Justice and Racial Equity Grant.
All right, so we're motion for approving the recommendations as seen on the screen. Do we have a second?
Second,
All those in favor of this being our recommendation to City Council for the Racial Equity and Social Justice Grants for 2024, say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, approved unanimously.
I would love to motion that we suggest to the city council that we have an additional 50,000 allocated as soon as possible, if that's in this current fiscal year or even in the next cycle.
All right,
I second.
okay, motion to request an additional $50,000 from City Council for the Racial Equity and Social Justice Grants. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? That also passes unanimously.
I didn't catch who seconded it.
Liz?
Thank you. I'm still learning voices, so if I'm not
Yeah.
looking up, sometimes I don't know who.
So you know that you requested for more work for next year, huh?
That's true.
If it gets
I don't, I'm not sure if it's more work. We already had to read through 30 applications this year, it's just more opportunity.
It was a lot more reading this year than it
was a lot, yeah.
I remember.
And I guess, do we have, I mean, is there any consideration for the future? It be 20K as opposed to 25K? When we get granted
as
the
far
more
as,
money? Yeah,
The limit,
That's,
thinking.
third motion.
Yeah,
that's a possibility too.
that
Yeah.
part, and we could.
That's up to us,
That's
isn't
up
it?
to us.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we could.
We can bring that up at a
is that
future
up
meeting.
to us, Stephanie?
Yeah.
I think it's a recommendation and then an approval by council, but
Yeah,
it's not,
council,
it's not really been, I don't recall a time where anything has led to a disagreement or inconsistent.
It's
You know,
here
go-
now. request first.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
One last comment. The item number 30, I just want you to know, I received that as a mother's heart. And that was precious to me. I knew it wouldn't pass, but that's how I held it.
I was concerned about the person. I mean, I did not understand that a lot, and so I thought it was not applicable, but I agree with you. I thought about it.
We need to vote to adjourn?
Yeah, we need a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn. This special meeting.
Fails for lack of second.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Seconded by Kadura. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.